Hello friends, I didn't get a chance to make a sit-down video because I've just been too exhausted recently, so I had a bit of a rest, and instead then I thought I would share a few of my thoughts with you, some things that I'd been thinking about recently. Now, in general, as human beings, we see ourselves to be special in terms of our intelligence. In fact, we think we are so intelligent that this special gift we have needs to be propagated and spread throughout the galaxy. But in my opinion, and really, rather than being intelligent, we're actually quite stupid. And the reason why I say this is because we seem to be completely incapable of learning from our mistakes. And part of the reason why we see ourselves to be so intelligent, or to possess some special level of intelligence, is because of our basically anthropocentric view in the context of this planet when compared to things like goldfish and worms. Then we develop a false sense of pride as being the most intelligent species on the planet. But if you look at our actions, if you look at our history, then it will become quite clear that what we do is we continually make the same mistakes over and over again and never actually learn from that. We make the same mistakes and somehow stupidly think that we will get different results. Now, in order to clarify this point, I'm going to have to refer to history, some of the historical examples of how we've been stupid and we haven't learned from our previous mistakes. So what we know is around 800 BC, and that's a long time ago, right? That's nearly 3,000 years ago. Then the Phoenicians had well-developed trade routes throughout the Mediterranean, and they even reached as far as the British Isles, for example. They were very successful at this. And their success depended upon their technology. That was their ships. They were well designed. And the primary source of fuel and building material was wood, as we know. So they had to cut down a lot of trees in order to build these ships. But not only that, in order to produce safe drinking water, then they had to distill seawater when they were on their voyages. And that means that whatever islands they stopped along the way, they would cut down trees and boil seawater, sort of boil off the steam, get rid of the salt, and produce drinking water. And they used this technology very successfully over many centuries. And for example, then the Romans used the same type of technology. And it was a similar situation for the British Navy. Now, these days, if you travel to the Mediterranean, then what you'll find is that most of the islands are deforested. There's no trees whatsoever. And of course, because there's no trees, these islands are also incredibly dry, because as we know, the root systems of the trees, then they hold water in the ground and stop it from evaporating. And the situation is so bad that these islanders have even tried to sue governments, for example, to sue the Italian government, saying that it was the bad practices of the past that have left them in such a bad situation. Of course, the Phoenicians and the Romans didn't understand what the consequences would be. The basic feeling we always have is, well, the trees will grow back, or we'll find new lands with new trees and we'll cut them down. We kind of have this mistaken idea that somehow our resources will last, or are permanent, or we'll always find new stuff. So it was a big mistake. If we fast forward a bit to the Industrial Revolution, then the development of the steam engine started a huge proliferation of industry in Europe. And again, the Victorians, the Germans, the Americans, they didn't realize that through industrialization, what they were doing was pumping many tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that eventually this would become a global problem. I have to say the Victorians were actually quite smart, because they knew that cities, for example, big cities like London, would produce large amounts of carbon dioxide, so they intentionally planted plane trees all along the boulevards in the city in order to absorb some of this carbon dioxide. They were quite smart, but they weren't able to predict the final outcome of their industrialization. I know a lot of you out there don't believe in climate crisis or global warming, but to me this is another sign of how essentially we humans are quite stupid. Because most of us think we have a greater understanding than some of the smartest minds in the world. For example, many people out there who don't have a basic understanding of grade 12 physics think they know more about the climate than these experts, professionals who have dedicated their entire life to studying climate change. Anyway, that's another topic. Just an example of how we're quite stupid, really. So the industrialists, the Victorians, they didn't realize that what they were doing was actually making things worse in the long run. They didn't realize what the eventual consequences would be of burning fossil fuels. What was common between the Phoenicians, the Romans, the Victorians, was they wanted progress, and they wanted to increase wealth or create wealth. We have this general idea that mankind needs to proliferate, and that we will grow from strength to strength and spread our influence throughout the globe. Now, if we look at the current situation and project into the future, then what will become extremely clear is that we are still doing the same thing. For example, Elon Musk claims that he wants to colonize Mars in order to preserve human consciousness, so that humanity can survive into the future. The idea is that if a large asteroid, like the one that killed the dinosaurs, hits the planet Earth, then we will have a greater chance of survival if we are multi-planetary. And his plan is to send lots of rocket ships to Mars and then use that as a base to further explore the solar system. Now, there is a fundamental flaw in his plan. Now, that's because what he plans to do is, once they reach Mars, is to use the water resources that exist on the planet to create rocket fuel. So that means they can create rocket fuel on Mars and use that to send the ships back to Earth, and then transfer material, manpower, etc. to the red planet. But here's the thing. The biggest problem with Mars in terms of colonization is that it's far too dry. There's far too little water. The atmosphere is far too thin. And so, really, to think you're going to go to Mars and then burn off all the water as rocket fuel is a perfect example of how we don't learn from our previous mistakes. Now, here's the thing. Eventually, as long as we don't wipe ourselves out, then we will get to Mars. And also, there is the potential for terraforming the planet so that we can survive there. And this is a long-term plan. Terraforming the planet Mars is going to take more than 100 years. They predict 200 or 300 years. And exactly how we do that is very important. Because what is for sure is that colonizing Mars is going to take an absolutely enormous amount of resources. It's probably something that can't be done unless many nations on the Earth pitch in. And the question is, why is Elon Musk in such a hurry? Is it because there is an asteroid on its way to the planet Earth, and within 100 years, if we don't colonize Mars, we're all dead? No, that's not the case. The reason why he is in such a rush is because he wants to be the first one. The first human being. He wants to go down in history as being the man who colonized the red planet. And so he's in a hurry. It's a race. But there's a problem with racing to Mars, or trying to force our way there. And that's because the way he plans to do it will use a huge amount of fuel. It's kind of like he wants to push through, sort of the macho approach to colonizing Mars. Now, there's something you should know, and that is, every time the Starship is launched, then it puts over 3,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent gases into the atmosphere. And on top of that, then it also deposits a lot of black carbon and chlorine gases into the upper atmosphere. And these chemicals and gases actually destroy the ozone layer. Now, at the moment, it's not a big issue because there aren't that many orbital launches. But in order for Elon Musk and SpaceX to achieve their goal of colonizing Mars within the given time frame, then they state that they will need to launch about 1,000 starships every year. And it's 100% certain that if we are launching 1,000 starships, plus all the other orbital vehicles that will be launched within a single year, then the negative impact on the environment will be absolutely phenomenal. In terms of Starship alone, what we're talking about is 3 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent gases into the atmosphere. Probably more than that. But the greater impact will be the destruction of the ozone layer. And without an ozone layer, then life on the surface of the Earth is nearly impossible. I remember when I was young, we had a huge scare because CFC gases were destroying the ozone layer. And because of a Canadian initiative, then banning these CFC gases has stopped this inevitable destruction. But if we start launching thousands of orbital vehicles every year into the atmosphere, then basically we're going back to square one. And there's something else you should know, and this is really important, and that is living on the Earth after a massive asteroid like the one that killed the dinosaurs impacts is actually easier than trying to live on the planet Mars. We know that a massive asteroid impacted the Earth in the Caribbean somewhere, and it contributed to the extinction of the dinosaurs. But here's the thing, we survived, and what's more, we're still here and we're still proliferating. And if in another 100 or 200 years there is a similar event, then we have what we need to live in subterranean tunnels or otherwise to weather the consequences of such a massive impact. But if we were to go to Mars now and try to live there without the support of humans on the planet Earth, we would have absolutely no chance. Basically, as soon as our resources that came from the planet Earth ran out, we'd be finished. There is no way for us to live on Mars. And like I said, it will take at least a century and probably more before we will be able to live there. So although we think that human beings possess a special level of intelligence and therefore our consciousness needs to spread throughout the universe, it's my opinion that there is something more important that we possess that we should try to preserve and promote right here on Earth. And that's not our intelligence or our wisdom. In fact, as I said, in my opinion, actually we're quite stupid. If there's something that we need to preserve and protect, then that is our ability to love and show compassion for others. Well, I'm sure there was something else I wanted to say, but I think this video is getting a bit too long already. So I'll just leave those thoughts for you, so you can ponder them yourself and decide. Ultimately, what is the most important thing for human beings to devote their time to and to develop? Because, as I've said before on many other occasions, even if we travel to the furthest planet in the galaxy, if along with us we bring our hatred and resentment our bigotry and our greed, we will never be happy. And what's more, we will not be able to contribute anything positive to the cosmos. Well, I think my ferry is coming now, so I'd better get going. But in the meantime, I wish you luck with your practice. And you should know, meditation and the spiritual path isn't about gaining new and special experiences. It's all about cultivating positive qualities such as humility, loving kindness and compassion. So until next time, good luck with your practice, and see you later.